I've come to a very integral understanding of how associated human identity works recently. In regards to cognitive damage, how people are so dysfunctional mentally to where they have to desperately reaffirm every experience they've gone through. All the factors environmentally that created them as a person, created their traumas. And they don't regard it as trauma. I realized something that really is probably the key to aiding much of my own work. That being that people don't psychologically stay people don't dismiss the obviousness that in order to actually achieve fulfillment, they need to change themselves, because they just, on a level of extreme frontal cortex damage, which is true, but on a level that they can't, not on a level of, say, that they just can't comprehend it. I guess that's the best way I could put it. That they can't realize that. They don't change because it's too sickly easy to change. And with how human beings are so desperate to affirm meaning, control, understanding, uniqueness, and familiarity to their lifestyles, to their values, to what they've built up around their personality, it's not so much that it's not that they don't subconsciously want to change, it's that it's way too simple. They internally feel that there had to have been something more to this. There had to have been something deeper to the identity I built up. There has to be something more substantial to everything that I endured, to create this personal image. Change is, for most people, in terms of extreme apathetic defensiveness, it really is just too easy. It's not that it's hard, it's too easy. It's too realistically simple. And most people, I truly feel, are on some minor level aware of that consciously. And I was blown away when I first realized this. In fact, I exactly remember when I first realized this. I don't remember all the exact, well, obviously it's subconscious, so I can't remember the external stimuli that triggered this critical assessment in exact detail. It's something that I'm unaware of. But I remember the exact moment that I had this realization. Well, it was closer to when I was leaving Quebec City. I was walking through the streets. I was walking through down the main boulevard at night of the Saint-Sauveur district, and I remember I was thinking, as I do, over and over in my head about everything and anything, all in existence. And I must have seen something that just made me realize that some of the surrounding social behaviors, I must have seen something that just made me go, wait, that's it. People just want to reaffirm their built-up personas because yeah, obviously I had known prior to this, with all my work before, that because of the lifestyles we lead, we build up extreme identities around all their actions. But never before had I come to the conclusion that in terms of giving meaningfulness to the nothingness of human existence, in essence, it's too easy. It's too easy to change that identity. It's too easy to quite literally to say that you were wrong, correct yourself, and then pick something else to follow. here's the thing in regards to why I'm making this video. Okay, here's the obvious one first, is because I want to talk. If there's nothing more blatantly truthful than that, I've seen things, I've learned things, I've assessed them, and I want to talk about them. And I don't have anyone to talk to about them. At least I have no one, or in most intervals, I have no one, have had no one that in large extents truly understand my projected thought process from their own interpretations. I don't. And in that too is because I want to educate people with the knowledge that I think is correct at that point in time. That is why. And I have met people at various points who I know they have in their own way, subtly, I guess. I know there are people who would see my life just so much as what is shown in regards to my online work. The only thing that is visible on a larger scale in regards to it at this point. I know there are people who admire in some fashion the things that I do, at least the way that I live. And they probably would ask if they could meet me, like, how do you do it? How have you done it? Or how are you so okay with being so rejected and alienated? And I've obviously talked about how obviously I'm not okay with that, but more so, how do you resist it? I guess would be a better word. How are you so able to tolerate the mass slew of severe abuse of your personhood? How are you able to remain at least as cognitively healthy as possible, and how am I just able to keep going? Well, the most brutally honest way that I could put it would be is that I'm one of the rare few out there who know what we are. Through my own created constructs. I know what kind of animal we are. And along with that, I know that whatever I did in my life, right or wrong, well thought out or poorly planned, I know that it'll all come full circle to I know that however I meet my death, I know that my life's end will be the same as how it began. Curiously aimless and unexpected. If you are so psychotic to believe that you can, other than, even in attempts at suicide, if you actually believe that you can predict how you're going to die, how it's going to be in that moment, you're wrong. You're sorely wrong. And that's how all experiences happen. Everybody can create whatever scenario in their mind for how something's gonna go. It'll never go how you consciously envision it. It's never going to. You will miss one, even if it's a minute detail. That minute detail could fumble however you thought you were going to react to it. Paradoxically, I guess then it wasn't a minute detail. You just thought it was a minute detail. And on top of all of it, in relation to how my life turned out, I know that in regards to our wholest, internally selfish nature, not externally, internally. Internal, whether it's destructive or healthy self-gratification. I know that the only person that my life will have as mattered as dearly as I know it is to will be me. That's the only person, no matter whoever else did love me, had care for me, that only goes to the furthest extent that people's unconscious 5 desires and their own loneliness projection, it only goes as far as it will allow them to. And this is why in regards to why I bash it, some of this commentary I guess I should be saving for whenever I make the next pseudo-intellectualism of the far and left wing video, but fuck it, I want to say some of it now. It's why I'm not, and why I've for the longest while bashed utilitarianism, classical and act utilitarianism in ethical values. You can't hide behind the supposed greatest good for the greatest number and think that it relinquishes your own self-desires. Like, when altruism, or what I call self-maintaining altruism, in any proper sense, you can't hide behind the idea that human beings live for other human beings on the essence of that your whole personal psychology is driven by another person's. You can't hide behind that, because that's the best way I can put it. You can't hide behind that because that's so clearly not true. You can't hide behind the idea, or it actually gets to the point where, okay, you do an altruistic act of supposed selflessness, and you try to enact supposed greatest beneficial outcomes for the group. Well, where do you fit into that group? What happens when what is better for what supposedly grants immediate satisfaction to the whole of the group? What happens when that sacrifices your own happiness? What happens when that actually sacrifices your being, your psychological health? What happens then? Are you just going to keep hiding behind that absolvement through altruism? And again, you see, that once, and they're going again, it slips into this surface level contradiction of utilitarianism. It gets into the idea of, well, you claim do and act in ways that benefit the greatest number. Well, when does the greatest number of people stop becoming the greatest number? What, is it all just relative, or when does that stop? Okay, you have to bomb a city that has inhabitants of 5 million people to save a nation. I'm throwing a long shot hypothetical here, but I'm just using it as an example. Think of a potential nuclear disaster need to you need you need to kill 5 million people to save a nation of 14 million in total, or then it'll say 14 million more. You can claim greatest good for the greatest number all you want. 5 million people is not a little amount of people. Like, if you really are a utilitarian, you need to take a walk. You need to take a walk outside your house and in your actual community. You need to go outside and see that so much as a neighborhood of 50 people is not a small amount compared to the size of human beings. It's not a small amount. Or say a city that's of inhabitants of roughly near 9,000. That's not a small amount when you're actually there. Unless you're absolving yourself into unless you're a complete recluse, then that's not a small amount of people. Not at all. Like, you disregard your own life and you disregard the human experience to be a utilitarian. Like, Bentham, I'll give him props. He was an intellectual. He tried to make a sound, logical argument. He tried to make a logical stance of what could actually have what could be a humane philosophy, but there were holes. There were big holes in the logic. They might not to certain people be very noticeable holes, but once you start digging a bit more, you'll see how big the hole is. So, how I live as I do. How do I survive? Emotionally. It's because if I want to stay alive, if I don't want to kill myself, which no one does, suicidal people do not want to be suicidal. Well, I have no option. That's the one thing that you could claim you have no choice in being. The one thing. Is anything but your actual self. Okay, well, yeah, you can choose on a surface level to deny it, But on an internal level, you don't have a choice. It'll kill you. It'll destroy your very physiology. It is so dangerous to deny your actual wants. Whether those wants were gained just through beneficial socialization or through harsh trauma. Like, morality is not relative. I've stated this a million times. I'm not going to repeat myself again on that morality is not relative. But morality, the reality is that you can't address a moral problem without addressing the psychological root of it first. If you know that you're a terrible person, or you feel that you've done terrible things, you can't just address the ethical portion of that problem, say that I'm gonna do this, follow in this value system, and that'll fix everything. This relates again to identity in regards to the harshness that all sides of politics has towards inhumane people. Okay, well, once again, it's reactionary policies. The right wing is inhumane. Misspoke there. Rightism is innately inhumane, so that they don't have lack of empathy towards they have amounts of lack of empathy towards other forms of their inhumaneness, but whatever. You can't just address the unethical actions of yourself or of anyone else without addressing the emotional root first. If you are a encroachingly sadistic sociopath, but you've had self-reflection and gone through enough cognitive refrainment to know that I don't like having this spitefulness and maliciousness towards other people in the small, realistic sense, the non-murderous ways of going about it, and you try to just change your moral function towards other people, if you don't address why you have that encroaching, malicious fetish, you're gonna be in chaos. You need to actually start looking at why is my nervous system so aroused by dehumanizing people? Why do I feel invigorated sensations towards harming other people? Because if you just ignore that, then you're gonna relapse, and you're gonna relapse hard. You can't just absolve yourself into, even if it is the moral values that you now hold are provably justifiable, would be beneficial. You can't proceed with that before addressing the internal problem. You can't. Because then that destroys yourself. And now here's another key thing as well, specifically in regards to sociopathic, narcissistic, egocentric, histrionic individuals. Malicious, people who have been malicious, who are malicious in relation to their identity. And I've seen this firsthand. I know this for a fact now. I know this for a fact. So many of the average, and I'm specifically speaking for sociopaths, the sociopaths amongst the average population, who aren't the upper class elitists, who aren't the higher ranking politicians, people who aren't of those status. The sociopaths that are amongst the average population of the world, who are malicious, who are degrading, who feel empowered from belittling other human beings. I've seen people get to who very clearly are these individuals get to points where they are self-aware enough of it. They realize how excruciatingly socially isolated they are, and they don't not change because they don't comprehend their horrible actions. Most of them. It's because they realize how others have perceived them, assessed their violence towards other people in whatever forms. They know that people hate them, or would hate them. Most average individuals of the superficial population will hate them, or do hate them, and they continuously get into a cycle of self-loathing because they reflect continuously on actions of their past, and they think No, I am a terrible person, and now I have to reaffirm this identity of being a horrific human being that I've built up because nobody's gonna forgive me. And so, why not? Now that I will have no one, this is the only thing that brings me joy. Or brings me an instant gratification of joy. It's the only thing that I know how to do, and it's the only thing that feels good. And if I'm not going to receive feeling good from other human beings now, even if I try to change, then I'm not going to change. Because at least this seems like a unique characteristic for me. That's a complete incorrect mindset, but that's what these people feel. From my psychoanalysis, that is what these people feel. And I see this so much with Gen Z. And it's so apparent on the internet. Let me tell you. If there was a way to just do stuff like what I do, like this, where people could see it, but have it like vlogs, like commentary, like whatever creative works you do, like what I used to do, sketch comedy. If there was a way to do all of this in the formats that have come from the internet, but have it not be on the internet in this sort of exact form, if there was a way, I would do it. Because I hate this fucking realm of human existence. I hate this stupid thing. There are ways of using the internet in beneficial function, but that's dwindling. There are good elements to using online spaces, but not a plethora. You get to a limited point after a while. There are ways of functioning through the abuse, but I so wish that the internet did not progress past what it was before the Y2K movement, before the late 1990s or the early 2000s. I really wish it didn't. And I so wish in regards to YouTube that it did not progress beyond 2010. I so wish. Because should I talk about this or should I save this? I'm working on writing in regards to this again. I have started to try to write, well, in regards to my theories and getting back on track of trying to make books, specific regards to nonfiction. One of them is actually going to address the absolute, without a doubt, humanitarian crisis that is the online generation. It's a fucking humanitarian crisis. It's not just mass trauma. It's not just dumb subcultures that clamor together. It's not just children who grew up too fast. It's a fucking mass. This fucking thing is a humanitarian crisis. The amount of inflaming that platform corporations have made online in the last decade alone, the mass purposeful polarization for elitist control has, and for not just in regards to performative activism, political performative activism, in regards to creating cherished memories for the internet generation. It is systematically, like every other system, but greater than any other system in history. I genuinely believe this. Worse than any other societal system in history has slowly, real slowly, murdered human connection, has further degraded pro-socializing sentiments that existed in higher amounts in the past, has further degraded it, has pushed all realms of major intellectual thought right to the outskirts of online usage. It's to the outskirts. You can't find anyone who, of definitive proof, who engages in true intellectualism anywhere in more of the mainstream circuits of the internet. I made a post about this. The last post I just made related to that discussion somewhat. But the internet has destroyed, has ruined human connection. And I don't like saying the internet, fine. It's corporations. It's not just the thing that is social media or the internet. It's not the fucking apps. It's not the screen that is murdering. Okay, well, they build it to be more enticing to for neuroocular stimulation, but even so, that's not the main thing that is the problem. It's the actual how it is promoted that the sites be used. That's what's the problem. And I now am seeing people online who are discussing how the internet is dying. Yeah, not surprising. And I'm just left here thinking, that's another thing too. It's not just that I know how my life is going to end. I know how, and I've made predictions. I haven't made much of them yet online here, because they've been in relation to my writings, whenever I get them further done. But I know how all of this is gonna end. I know how so many different ideologies are gonna end up. And I'm just sit here waiting and watching. Here's a little prediction that I'm actually gonna make now. Like, YouTube is going down the drain. They're fundamentally, purposely trying to destroy this app, make it literally unusable, with the mass, how they promote horribly edited, horribly nauseating. It's nauseating content. How the layout, I can't even look at the homepage of YouTube anymore for too long. I can't. It hurts my eyes. It literally, I feel bad for anyone who is autistic or has ADHD, who in severe amounts, who goes on YouTube, because it must be horrific. They must not be able to stare at it for more than 2 minutes. It's overstimulation nonsense. I mean it. I can count in the last literal 10 months how its automated programs how they have changed it to, one, increase whatever amounts of profit they can still from it, and two, to destroy it so that people will go and buy YouTube Premium as a streaming service, so that they'll go buy that. It's a classic tactic of corporations, especially not just online, in the real world. Build up public utilities out under the provisions of the governmental forces that we control, that we are a part of, so that we can have mass taxpayer funds go right back to our private sector hierarchies. Then, when we want to introduce a newcomer to the elitist factions for a trend corporation, a small subsidiary to come about of some kind, to provide those services, fucking destroy the public service. Destroy it. Just fundamentally let it go to rot. We do it all the time. What's the most common one is public transit. Public transit. It's the most common one where this is done. Okay, we build the buses, we build the trains, we build the streetcars, we pave these specific road routes in whatever area of a municipality or region, but we really want to just integrate it into convincing people to go more towards private operations, public service operations for transit. Fucking ruin the public ones. Don't put any funding, put lesser funding into it. Don't repair the buses. Let them go another 2 years on rickety condition. Same with the trains. Don't repair the tracks. Let them be completely unstable until a major accident happens, and it'll convince people to go towards the private usage. Let that happen. It's classic. And YouTube is doing the same. I don't doubt TikTok will do the same at some point. Self-destruct itself for a new service that they'll provide that you need to pay for. In regards to that, here's a prediction I'm gonna have. In maybe like 20, maybe 25 years or so, maybe sooner, YouTube, like public YouTube here, is literally just going to be not shut down, not go the way of, say, like Vine did, where there's now literally it's just barren, no content, every bit of content was just scrubbed from that platform. Even though I think you can still download the shell of the you can download the shell of an app that has nothing, and you can't do anything with it. Last I checked, maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe they've actually removed it from the App Store. And apparently also, MindGeek, Pornhub's parent company, bought out Vine for whatever reason. I don't know what they were planning on turning that into. They haven't done anything with it. If they still hold the rights to Vine. You haven't done anything. I'm not kidding. Anyone who doesn't know that. Yeah, specifically, actually, was it MindGeek or was it just Pornhub specifically? Whatever. Pornhub and or MindGeek bought up Vine. They bought Vine. And at last I checked, they still hold the rights to it. I'm not kidding about that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to move because it's gonna start pouring.